Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Ethereal here. Today we're diving into a seriously intriguing DxD what-if scenario. What if Issei was a demonic revenant? If you love my stories, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a story. Let's set a little goal. Can we get 50 likes on this video? I know this community can do it. Alright, grab your earphones and let's jump into this story. Chapter 1. Ashes and Shadows. The searing agony in Issei's chest was unlike anything he'd ever felt, like his insides were being roasted alive. He gasped for breath as the world blurred above him. The shattered remains of the school gym, the flickering embers of battle, the distant shapes of his friends calling his name. He reached for them, but his arm felt so heavy, and everything was growing cold, so cold. Rias. I'm sorry. A flash of red hair, a voice, desperate and beautiful, echoing somewhere just out of reach. And then darkness. It should have ended there. But instead, Issei's eyes fluttered open to darkness. Not just any darkness, but a velvet blackness so absolute he wondered if he'd gone blind. The pain was gone, replaced by an eerie numbness, and the pounding of his heart was silent. He sat up, confused. The air was thick with a strange, metallic scent. His senses felt sharper, more alive. He could hear the whisper of distant footsteps, the flutter of moth wings against a window. Everything was heightened, back among the living, or something else. A voice, ancient and amused, echoed through the black. Issei whirled around, searching for the source, but saw nothing. Who's there? Where am I? A shape took form in the shadows, tall, horned, with eyes that glimmered crimson in the pitch black. You wanted to live, didn't you, Issei Hayadu? Even after your flame was snuffed out. I answered that wish. But every wish has its cost. Issei's brain scrambled for logic. Devil magic? Another enemy? Had Rias saved him? I don't care what it costs. I can't leave them behind. The figure's smile was pure mischief. Very well. A new fate for a dragon's heart. Rise, Issei, Revenant of the Grimoire, shadow-touched, hunger-bound. Go back to your world and see what you've become. A rush of chill swept through him. Shadows pooled at his feet, crawling up his arms like living ink. He wanted to scream, to fight, but all he could do was cling to the hope of seeing Rias again. The world spun, shadows swallowing everything, and then he gasped, sitting bolt upright in his own bed, drenched in cold sweat. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. The sounds of his mother making breakfast drifted up the stairs. Had it all been a dream? His heart thudded in his chest. No, wait, it didn't. He pressed a hand to his chest, panic rising. No heartbeat. Oh crap. Did I sleep weird? Or am I? He glanced in the mirror. His skin was a shade paler, his eyes held a faint, unnatural glow, and his hair looked slightly sharper. He opened his mouth, fangs gleaming for a split second before vanishing. Issei stared, then grinned, an idea sparking in his mind despite the terror. Okay, undead pervert powers, activate, he muttered, then paused. Wait, that sounds way creepier than it should. He tried to concentrate, to remember what happened. He reached for the faintest whisper of power, and suddenly, he flickered. For a heartbeat, his reflection wasn't in the mirror at all. He'd vanished, then popped back a second later. Holy shadow teleportation, he yelped, then realized he'd reappeared half in, half out of his closet door. He tumbled to the floor in a heap, feet sticking out like a haunted coat rack. His mother called up the stairs. Issei, breakfast. Don't be late for school. Coming. He croaked, untangling himself. He stood, wobbling slightly. His room felt too bright, too loud. The familiar posters of beautiful girls on his wall seemed to be smirking at him. Issei took a breath, steeled himself, and whispered, whatever I am now, I'm still me. And there's no way I'm letting a little thing like death keep me from my harem dreams. He forced a grin, trying to ignore the chill in his veins and the hunger gnawing at the edges of his mind. Today, Issei Hayadu returned to school, but he was not the same boy who had left. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Revenant Awakening. Sunlight had never felt so rude. Issei squinted as he stumbled onto the school grounds, each ray stabbing his eyes like little knives. He'd left the house wearing sunglasses, a bold move, but if anyone asked, he'd blame late-night anime marathons. Even so, the world seemed too loud, too colorful, too alive. He shivered. At least, he thought he did. It was hard to tell when his body temperature barely budged. Yo, Hayadu. Matsuda called, waving from across the courtyard. Looking sharp, man. New look. Issei flashed a forced grin, keeping the glasses firmly in place. Just trying to up my cool factor. Motohama leaned in, squinting at him suspiciously. You sick or something? You look paler than usual. Even for a shut-in, he shrugged. Guess I'm just feeling drained. Ugh, that was too on the nose, even for me. Classes dragged by in a haze of whispers and stares. Issei noticed every heartbeat, every whispered secret in the hallway, every flicker of movement out the window. At one point, he caught himself eavesdropping on the teacher's lounge from 2 floors down. When he accidentally answered a question that hadn't been asked out loud, the class went silent. Lucky guess, he stammered, sweating despite the chill in his veins. Lunchtime brought no relief. If anything, the hunger in his stomach was worse. He poked at his bento, trying to will himself to eat, but the sight of food left him cold. Asia approached, concern in her wide green eyes. Issei-san, are you feeling all right? You seem different. Akino smiled gently, but there was a glint of curiosity in her eyes. Yes, you do seem a little out of sorts today. Kaneko, never one for subtlety, sniffed the air and frowned. You smell weird, Issei. He coughed. Weird? Like cologne weird. Or a bad weird. Like not alive weird. Kaneko deadpanned and took a slow, deliberate bite of her snack, watching him with narrowed eyes. Asia fussed, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Warmth bloomed where she touched him. For a second, Issei swore he could almost feel his heartbeat. He clung to the moment, masking his discomfort with a joke. I'm just tired, I guess. Studying too hard. You know how it is, he said, flashing his usual pervy grin. Akino leaned closer, her voice playful but probing. If you ever need some special attention, Issei-kun, just let me know. Lightning flickered at her fingertips. He nearly jumped out of his seat. No, Issei. Now is not the time to be horny. Or dead. Or both. The afternoon only got stranger. He was late for gym, sprinted down the hall, and, without warning, vanished in a swirl of shadow. 1 second, he was running. The next, he materialized inside the girls' locker room, staring at a very startled Zenobia and a half-dressed Rias. Time froze. So did Issei. A beat. Then 3 things happened in rapid succession. Zenobia reached for her sword. Rias's face turned as red as her hair. Issei tried to teleport again, and ended up wedged halfway into a supply closet, with only his legs sticking out. Not again, he wailed, muffled by towels. The door opened. Kaneko's cat-like eyes stared down at him, unimpressed. Pervert. Ghost pervert. Issei groaned. After school, Rias summoned him to the old school building. The clubroom felt strangely charged, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Rias folded her hands, her gaze cool but caring. Issei, you've been acting unusual. I want the truth. He hesitated, but the urge to confess was overwhelmed by a wave of something new power, subtle and slippery. He caught Rias's gaze, and a faint, dark glow shimmered between them. She blinked, her expression softening. Issei, just relax. If you're not ready to talk, that's okay. He froze. Did he just hypnotize Rias Gremory? The power faded, and Issei nearly collapsed in relief and panic. Okay, no abusing that. The club stared at him, concern etched on every face. Akino broke the tension. Well, at least you're still our Issei-kun. Strange powers, pale skin, haunted eyes and all. Kaneko snorted. Still a pervert. Just more. Undead. They laughed, and for a moment, the heaviness lifted. But as the sun set, Issei's reflection lingered in the window. His eyes flashed red in the dying light, and the hunger, something dark and cold, gnawed at his soul. Tonight, he would dream of ancient shadows, of prophecies whispered in the dark. Tomorrow, he would try to act normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. Whispers in the dark. The night was quiet, but Issei Hayadu was not. He tossed and turned, blanket tangled around his legs. His room, usually filled with the comforting glow of late-night anime and the soft hum of his computer, felt like a stranger's. Shadows crowded the corners, whispering secrets in a language he almost understood. Finally, with a groan, Issei sat up. He glanced at the clock. 2:47 a.m. The hunger was back, sharper than before, like icy fangs dragging along his spine. He eyed his mini-fridge, but the thought of actual food was unappetizing. He padded to the window, cracking it open. Cool air brushed against his face, carrying the scents of the night, fresh grass, city smog, and something else, distant but tempting, like a pulse echoing in the darkness. Issei shook his head. Nope, nope, nope. Not doing the creepy vampire thing. I'm a pervert, not a predator. But the shadows only laughed. The next morning, Issei dragged himself to school, sunglasses perched on his nose. It was Friday, normally a day for anticipation, for peeking at the kendo club, for plotting with Matsuda and Motohama. Today, it was all about survival. In the hallways, Whispers followed him like a fog. He overheard a dozen conversations at once. Some normal. Did you see Haidu's hair? Is that hair gel or evil magic? Some less so. I heard a rumor. The Grimoire Devil's pawn died and came back wrong. He tried to focus on the ordinary. He really did. But as he turned a corner, he flickered, a shadow step, and suddenly found himself somewhere very, very wrong. He materialized inside the girl's changing room. Again, he blinked, just in time to see Akino adjusting her uniform. She turned, meeting his gaze with an amused, wicked smile. Well, Issei-kun, to what do we owe the pleasure? She purred. Behind her, Kaneko glared over her shoulder. Ghost pervert. That's a new low, even for you. Rias, half-dressed, spun around in shock, then settled into a weary sigh. Issei? Really? He threw his hands up. I swear, it's not on purpose. My powers, puberty, are out of control. Rias walked over, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Her eyes softened as she looked at him, searching for something. Meet me after club. We need to talk. He nodded, then thankfully managed to teleport himself out before Kaneko could launch a folding chair at him. After school, the occult research club gathered in their usual spot. The mood was tense. Everyone could feel the change in the air. Rias closed the door and faced Issei. You keep ending up where you shouldn't, Issei. And it's not just your usual antics. Kaneko crossed her arms, tail twitching. He smells like old graveyards and burnt sugar. Akino grinned. So mysterious. Should we be scared, Issei-kun? Asia fidgeted, her worry plain. Please, if you're in trouble, let us help you. Issei wanted to come clean, but every time he tried, the words caught in his throat. It was as if the shadows themselves held him back, wrapping around his secrets like a velvet shroud. He managed a joke instead. Maybe I'm just evolving. Soon I'll be the world's first harem king and part-time ghost. Akino snorted, and even Rias managed a smile. But the tension didn't break. Instead, Rias pulled out a thick, ancient-looking book and laid it on the table. I found this in the Grimoire archives, she said. It mentions something. Revenant, a being who returns from death, neither devil nor human. Issei's breath caught. Rias continued, eyes dark with worry. And it says the Revenant brings whispers of prophecy. Change. Danger. The club fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the wall clock. Issei forced a laugh, but inside, the truth coiled tighter. If they knew what I'd become, would they still stand by me? That night, as he lay in bed, the shadows returned, soft, insistent, promising power and hunger in equal measure. But Issei clung to one thought stronger than any dark whisper. He wouldn't lose himself. Not to shadows. Not to fate. He was Issei Haidu, after all. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Prophecy Shadow. The school day blurred past Issei like a fever dream. Every moment felt stretched and brittle, as if he was watching life through a pane of cold, warped glass. Even his favorite distractions, Akino's teasing, Matsuda's ridiculous schemes, the promise of accidental peaks, couldn't drown out the gnawing feeling inside. At lunch, he caught Rias watching him, her gaze sharp and worried. Asia sat close, radiating gentle warmth. Even Kaneko hovered near, sniffing the air every so often and muttering, "Graveyard boy." Issei tried to laugh it off, but the cracks in his smile were showing. After class, Rias summoned the club to the old school building. The clubroom was dim, shades drawn tight, a faint scent of incense drifting in the air. On the table, that ancient book Rias had shown them yesterday sat open, its pages yellowed and crumbling. Rias's eyes met Issei's. This is about you, isn't it? Issei swallowed. He looked at the text. The letters writhed and shimmered, but somehow he could read them now. The words pulled at his mind like old, forgotten music. When the dragon's pawn falls in flame and shadow, a revenant shall rise, neither living nor dead, bearing the curse and gift of darkness. And with his hunger, the world's balance shall sway. Asia gasped, eyes wide. A prophecy. Akino's playful facade slipped. And the factions? If they find out, Rias closed the book gently. They already suspect. Last night, my brother sent a warning from the underworld. There are whispers everywhere about a revenant who survived the Phoenix's fire. Kaneko's expression turned serious. Revenants aren't supposed to exist. Not anymore. Issei wanted to sink into the floor. So what am I then? A devil? A monster? Rias crossed to him and squeezed his hand. You're Issei. That's all that matters to me. Elsewhere, in candlelit halls and moonlit towers, others were not so forgiving. In the underworld, devil nobles muttered about abominations and heretical magic. The fallen sent scouts to Kuo, eager for rumors of forbidden power. Even the church, sensing a new player in the eternal game, began to pray and plot. The prophecy spread like wildfire, and with it, fear. Back in his room that night, Issei sat on his bed, staring at his pale hands. Shadows curled around his fingers, eager, restless. His mind replayed the prophecy over and over, the words a curse and a dare. What if I really am the reason everything changes? What if the only way to save my friends is to stay away? He shook his head, determination rising. No, he wouldn't run. He wouldn't become a monster or a martyr. As the moonlight spilled across his desk, Issei whispered a promise into the dark. I'll protect them. Whatever I am, I won't let this darkness win. Outside, the shadows seemed to shiver in anticipation. And far away, unseen eyes watched Kuo, drawn by the growing power and the shape of destiny in the making. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, Blood Moon. Night fell on Kuo with an unnatural heaviness. The full moon hung low in the sky, swollen and red as if dipped in fresh blood. Issei stood at his window, the hunger inside him prickling with anticipation. The shadows beneath the trees seemed to lean in, eager for something, anything, to break the quiet. He was used to supernatural weirdness, but tonight felt different. Even the air tasted like iron and old secrets. A knock at his door startled him. His mother's voice. Issei, someone's here to see you. A friend from school. He frowned. That didn't feel right. He tiptoed downstairs, each step echoing too loud in the darkness. At the front door stood a stranger, tall, pale, wrapped in a long black coat that shimmered with enchantments. His eyes glowed a deep, unnatural green, and his smile was razor-thin. Hi to Issei, isn't it? The stranger said, voice cold as grave dirt. Issei's senses screamed. This was no devil, no angel. He smelled of old earth, blood, and bitter magic. Who are you? Issei asked, stepping protectively between the stranger and his mother. The stranger smiled wider. Call me a concerned party. I'm here to confirm a rumor. A revenant walks among the devils, yes? Before Issei could answer, the man flicked his wrist. Shadows lashed out, knocking Issei's mother unconscious in an instant. Panic and fury flared inside him, and something monstrous uncoiled in his chest. You shouldn't have come here, Issei growled, his own shadows rising instinctively. The stranger laughed. Show me, then, Revenant. Show me why the factions fear you. They clashed in the moonlit street. The hunter moved with predatory grace, wielding blades of enchanted silver that hissed when they touched Issei's skin. But Issei was faster now. He flickered through the shadows, dodging, weaving, striking back with inhuman strength. For a moment, Issei's reflection caught in a puddle, eyes blazing crimson, fangs bared, shadows swirling around his hands like living weapons. The hunter sneered. You're just a scared boy wearing a monster's mask. Issei grinned back, gothic humor finding him even in the chaos. Yeah? At least I make this look good. The hunter lunged, and Issei's charm power surged, a pulse of darkness in his voice. Sleep. For a split second, the hunter faltered, eyes glassy. Issei seized the moment, landing a blow that sent him crashing into a wall. But the hunter rose, blood at his lips, grinning with fanatic delight. Yes, that's what I came for. The prophecy is true. You are the Revenant. A circle of runes flared beneath his feet, magic meant to bind or destroy. Issei felt the shadows tearing at his soul, a desperate hunger clawing to get out. He staggered, vision blurring. And then Rias was there, magic blazing, eyes full of fury and fear. She stood between Issei and the hunter, her crimson aura burning like a star. You don't touch my pawn, Rias hissed. With a sweep of her hand, she blasted the hunter back with a wave of demonic power. Issei fell to his knees, panting, the hunger in his chest writhing. Rias dropped beside him, cradling his face in her hands. Stay with me, Issei. Don't let the darkness take you, she whispered. The hunter, battered but smiling, retreated into the shadows. You've made your choice, Gremory. Now all the world will come for your Revenant. Back in his room, Issei sat on his bed, trembling. Rias stayed with him, refusing to let go of his hand. Thank you, he managed, his voice ragged. Rias stroked his hair, her voice gentle but fierce. You're not alone. Whatever you become, I'll be by your side. Always. He managed a weak grin, despite the hunger still gnawing at his core. Guess you're stuck with an undead pervert, President. Rias smiled, a tear tracing down her cheek. As long as you're my Issei, I don't care what you are. Outside, the blood moon burned brighter. In its light, the shadows whispered of war, and the Revenant who might tip the scales. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Heartbeats and Heartbreaks. Issei didn't sleep that night. He lay awake, staring at his ceiling as shadows crept along the walls, twisting into shapes that whispered of danger and hunger. Rias had stayed by his side until dawn, only leaving when the first light crept through the curtains and forced her back to her world. Even then, her hand had lingered in his, her eyes filled with promise and fear. When he finally dragged himself to school, Issei felt less like a boy and more like a ghost haunting his own life. His friends noticed, their teasing quieter, their concern unspoken but heavy. Even the teachers seemed to glance his way more often, as if sensing something off. At lunch, the occult research club gathered on the roof. Rias sat beside Issei, her warmth grounding him, but there was an unspoken tension among them all. Asia was the first to speak, her voice small. "Issei-san, are you really okay?" He tried to smile. "Just tired, Asia. Guess I overdid it." But even Akino, usually quick with a flirt or joke, simply reached out and squeezed his shoulder. "You don't have to lie to us, you know." Kaneko watched him from the shade, her eyes narrowed in thought. "You're colder now. Not just your skin. Your heart." Issei's chest tightened. He tried to laugh it off. "My heart's just a little shy, I guess. Besides, I've always been a bit cold, haven't I?" He flashed his signature grin, but it felt wrong. Hollow. Akino's lips curved, but her gaze was gentle. "You still have a heartbeat for Rias, at least." Rias turned pink and elbowed him playfully, but her fingers sought his under the table, holding on as if she feared he might fade away if she let go. After school, Rias called Issei aside as the others cleaned the clubroom. Alone with her, he finally let the mask slip. "Rias, what if I really am changing?" he whispered. "What if I can't control it?" Rias reached up, cupping his cheek. "I see you, Issei. No matter what changes on the outside, you're still you inside. That's what matters." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to say something cool, or at least perverted enough to make her laugh, but all that came out was a broken sigh. "I'm scared. Not of dying, but of losing myself. Of hurting all of you. Of hurting you." She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight. Her heartbeat was strong and steady, so different from the emptiness he felt inside. "Then let me be your anchor," she whispered. "If the darkness pulls you away, I'll pull you back. Every time." Issei buried his face in her hair, letting himself breathe in her scent, warm and alive. For a moment, the hunger quieted, and he felt almost whole. Downstairs, the rest of the peerage lingered outside the clubroom, each lost in their own thoughts. Asia clutched her rosary, whispering prayers for Issei's soul. Kaneko watched the door, her face set in determination. "If he turns into a monster, I'll just have to knock sense into him." Akino smiled softly, but her eyes shone with challenge. "Or maybe I'll see how far his darkness really goes." They all knew things would never be the same. But they also knew Issei would never truly be alone, not as long as they were by his side. That night, as Issei drifted toward a restless sleep, he felt a faint warmth in his chest, like the echo of a heartbeat. It wasn't enough to drown out the darkness, but it was enough to remind him that, no matter what he became, he still had people worth fighting for. And, for tonight, that was enough. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. Harem Hijinks, Revenant Edition. Issei had never felt so watched in his life, and considering he was the self-proclaimed king of Peking, that was saying something. Everywhere he went, at least one member of the occult research club hovered nearby, eyes bright with concern, curiosity, or just a touch of competitive mischief. It was a new kind of torture, surrounded by beautiful girls who wanted to help, protect, or study him, while his new powers seemed determined to embarrass him at every turn. It began with lunch. Asia arrived with a bento. He could smell the effort she put into it, the hope in her smile. She sat close, beaming as she opened the box to reveal adorable little onigiri, each with tiny faces drawn on them. "Say ah, Issei-san," she said, offering one with chopsticks. He tried, he really did, but his undead appetite rebelled at the taste of rice. He managed to chew and swallow, but his face twisted. Asia's eyes widened. "Issei-san, do you not like it?" "And no. It's delicious, Asia. I just, bit my tongue." He tried to smile, but it was probably more of a grimace. Rias, watching from the head of the table, giggled. "Maybe you need something more rare." Akino leaned in, her lips at Issei's ear, voice a velvet purr. "Or perhaps a taste of something forbidden?" Issei sputtered, almost choking on a rice ball as Akino accidentally brushed her fingers against his neck, right over his pulse point. He could feel his charm power pulse, shadows flickering around him. Asia gasped, Kaneko rolled her eyes, and Rias shot Akino a glare that could melt stone. After school, the hijinks only escalated. Akino cornered Issei in the hallway. "You know, Issei-kun, I've always been curious about the other side of magic." With a sly smile, She traced a finger down his arm. How does it feel to be touched by darkness and lightning? Before he could answer, a jolt of static leapt from her hand, making his hair stand on end, literally. For a brief moment, Issei's silhouette flickered with shadows, giving him the appearance of a gothic rock star who'd just lost a fight with a hairdryer. Kaneko popped up behind him, deadpan as always. You look like a rejected member of a vampire boy band. Hey, Issei protested, but before he could recover, Zenobia and Irina appeared. We want to test your new abilities in a sparring match, Zenobia said, holding her sword with a determined gleam. Don't hold back just because you're, technically dead, Irina added, crossing herself and then winking. Within minutes, Issei found himself dodging holy swords and angel feathers, his shadow teleportation kicking in every time he panicked. One moment he was on the practice field. Then, with a swirl of darkness, he appeared in the girls' bath, where steam and towels made a strategic attempt at modesty. A pause. 7 pairs of eyes turned on him. He froze. I swear, this is not my fault. Rias raised an eyebrow, amused but dangerous. If you're going to haunt the baths, at least bring a towel next time, Issei. The next instant, he shadow stepped out, only to reappear upside down, dangling from the clubroom's chandelier. Later, as dusk fell and things quieted down, the girls gathered around Issei in the clubroom. He slumped in a chair, exhausted but strangely happy. Asia rested her head on his shoulder, Rias squeezed his hand. Akino teased him with a sly wink, and even Kaneko settled on the arm of his chair, tail flicking. Akino broke the silence first, mischief in her eyes. So, Issei-kun, which is more powerful, the hunger of a revenant or the hunger of a pervert? He grinned, shadows swirling playfully around his fingertips. Why not both? Laughter echoed through the room, the tension broken, at least for tonight. But as they all went their separate ways, Rias lingered, her fingers tracing the shadows at Issei's wrist. We'll get through this together, she whispered. No matter what, or who comes for you next. He squeezed her hand, feeling that faint, impossible echo of a heartbeat. Maybe being undead wasn't so bad after all, especially with a harem to haunt. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The hunt begins. The days of strange but harmless hijinks faded as the supernatural world began to close its grip around Kuo. Word of the Revenant had spread, and every shadow in the city felt just a little colder, a little heavier. Issei noticed it first in the subtle way people walked, heads lowered, glances darting, as if they sensed a coming storm. After school, the clubroom was tense. Rias paced before the window, arms crossed. The setting sun cast her hair in bloody fire. We've been watched, she said, voice low. Twice today, I sensed a presence. They didn't approach, but they're not from this town. Akino nodded, her usual playful smile gone. The wards around the school have been tampered with. Someone powerful, likely fallen. Kiba drew his sword, its edge glinting with anticipation. We should increase patrols. If they come for Issei, they'll find all of us waiting. Issei tried to joke, but his heart, or what passed for it, wasn't in it. Do you think they want an autograph, or just a piece of me? Kaneko, perched on the windowsill, flicked her tail. They want your head. Maybe your soul. Asia squeezed Issei's hand, eyes big with worry. Will we be safe, Issei-san? He squeezed back, forcing a brave smile. As long as we stick together. And as long as I don't teleport into the girls' bath again. For the first time all afternoon, a nervous laugh rippled around the room. That evening, patrols began. Kiba, Zenobia, and Irina swept the perimeter while Issei stayed close to the old school building with Rias, Akino, and Asia. The air was thick with tension and a tinge of ozone. The electric feel of magic ready to be unleashed. Suddenly, a flare of dark light streaked across the sky, a bolt of fallen angel magic. Akino's face hardened, and her hands crackled with lightning. They're here. From the trees, 3 figures emerged, cloaked in black and blue. Their wings unfurled with a hiss, black feathers scattering in the wind. The leader, a beautiful but deadly woman with violet eyes, pointed a spear of light at Issei. Hayuru Issei, she intoned, voice echoing with power. By order of the Grigori, you are to surrender yourself. The Revenant's existence is forbidden. Rias stepped forward, power swirling around her. If you want him, you'll have to go through me and the House of Grimory. Akino joined her, lightning dancing in her hair. And me. I've always enjoyed frying fallen angels. Issei felt the hunger within him rear up, shadows curling protectively around his feet. For the first time, he didn't fight it. He let the power settle, cold and sure, into his limbs. He met the leader's gaze and grinned, gothic humor returning. You know, If you wanted a date, you could have just asked. The fallen leader's lips curled in disdain. You are an abomination. Stand down or be destroyed. Kiba and the others arrived, forming a shield around Issei. The battle erupted. Light spears rained from the sky, clashing with demonic magic and holy swords. Issei's shadow teleportation flickered at his command, weaving him between attacks and letting him strike from impossible angles. Asia stayed behind the front lines, her healing magic ready, whispering prayers for everyone's safety. At one point, a fallen angel nearly landed a killing blow on Issei, but a sudden surge of hypnotic power froze her in place. He used the moment to disarm her, whispering, "Sorry. Nothing personal, just undead business." Finally, Rias unleashed her full power, crimson energy swirling and detonating in a brilliant wave that forced the fallen angels to retreat. The leader glared at Issei, her voice a promise. "You cannot hide forever, Revenant. All of heaven and hell will hunt you." With that, the night fell quiet again, broken only by the heavy breathing of Issei and his friends. Afterward, back in the clubroom, Rias placed a gentle hand on Issei's shoulder. "We'll need to be even more careful now. They won't stop." Issei nodded, a shiver running through him. He looked around at his friends, his harem, and realized he'd never needed them more. Asia hugged him tight. "We're not going anywhere, Issei-san." Akino winked, her smile returning at last. "Besides, who else would cause this much chaos?" He smiled, feeling that echo of a heartbeat again, faint, but growing stronger. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. Midnight Duel. The hours after the fallen angel's attack passed in uneasy silence. Rias sent the others home early, insisting that Issei stay in the clubroom, safe within layers of new magical wards. But Issei couldn't rest. He kept pacing, watching the moon through the windows as shadows pressed against the glass, hungry and impatient. Somewhere inside, the hunger gnawed worse than ever, as if every fight made it stronger. It was just past midnight when the wards shattered. A cold wind swept through the room, snuffing out the candles. The darkness seemed to pulse, and in the space between two heartbeats, a figure appeared, tall, wreathed in blue-black wings, eyes glowing with lethal resolve. The fallen angel from before, the leader. She smiled, sharp and cold. "Did you think mere barriers would stop me, Revenant?" Issei clenched his fists, feeling the power coil in his blood. "Back for round 2? Sorry, I don't do autographs after midnight." The angel laughed, summoning a lance of pure light. "Your jokes won't save you, abomination." Before Issei could react, she lunged. Shadows surged to defend him, swirling in a desperate shield. He teleported, barely dodging her attacks, reappearing across the room. But she was relentless. Her lance carved through his defenses, forcing him out onto the moonlit rooftop. Above the school, the duel began in earnest. Moonlight and Shadow danced as Issei and the angel clashed. Her attacks were graceful and merciless, his moves fueled by panic, power, and a growing darkness inside. With every blow, Issei felt the hunger clawing to the surface, whispering promises of strength if only he'd surrender to it. The angel sneered. "You're fighting yourself more than me, Revenant. Story of my life." Issei snapped, teeth bared. He tried to keep it together, but the fight pressed him further, every wound stinging more than it should, every dodge a little slower. The darkness inside began to win. Suddenly, she feinted and landed a blow, her lance crackling through his side. Pain exploded in Issei's world. His vision tunneled, and he felt the shadows lurch. For a heartbeat, the rooftop spun. The angel closed in. "You're a threat to the balance. You should never have existed." Her words echoed the prophecy. The pain, the fear, the isolation, Issei felt it all, and for a moment, the darkness took over. His eyes flashed blood red. Shadows roared out of him, monstrous and wild. The angel staggered back as the air turned cold, and Issei almost lost himself, almost let the Revenant take full control. Down below, Rias sensed the shift. She raced to the rooftop, magic blazing in her hands, Akino and Kiba on her heels. Rias burst through the door just as the angel raised her lance for the final blow. "Issei!" Rias shouted, her voice breaking through the darkness. Issei's head snapped up. For a second, all he saw was hunger and pain. But then he saw Rias, saw the tears in her eyes, felt her fear and hope reaching out to him. Something inside him snapped back into place. With a roar, Issei forced the shadows to heal. He teleported behind the angel, disarming her with a surge of hypnotic power. Her eyes went glassy for a moment, just long enough for Kiba to kick her weapon away. Akino's lightning cracked in the air. "Step away from our Issei, fallen." Rias knelt beside Issei, grabbing his hands. "Come back. You're not a monster. You're my Issei." The angel, beaten and shocked, glared. This isn't over. The prophecy. Rias rose, her power blazing. The prophecy is what we make it. Leave, before I show you the full wrath of Grimory. Defeated, the angel vanished into the night. After the fight, Issei slumped against Rias, trembling as the hunger faded. She held him, heart pounding, her voice a soft promise. You're still you, she whispered. No matter what happens. Asia and the others arrived moments later, surrounding Issei with warmth and light. For the first time in days, the shadows inside him grew quiet. He looked at his friends, his harem, and most of all, at Rias. He wasn't alone. Not now. Not ever. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. Confessions Under the Moon. The rooftop felt quieter now. The wind had lost its edge, and the lingering shadows seemed less like hungry monsters and more like tired old friends. Issei sat on the tiles, legs dangling over the side, staring up at the moon as it drifted through thin clouds. Below, the city twinkled. Above, the stars watched in silent witness. He shivered, not from cold, but from the memory of almost losing himself. The hunger inside was quieter now, but not gone. He wondered if it ever would be. Rias sat down beside him, her hand finding his without a word. She looked at the side of his face, worry and affection tangled in her gaze. You scared me tonight, she admitted softly. I thought I was going to lose you. Not to an enemy, but to the darkness inside you. Issei closed his eyes, guilt prickling at his chest. I almost did. It was so easy to just let go. The power felt good, but it wasn't me. I'm sorry, Rias. I don't want to be a monster. She leaned into him, pressing her warmth into his side. You're not a monster, Issei. You're you. And you're not alone. He opened his eyes. I'm scared I'll hurt you all. Or worse, you'll have to stop me. Her grip tightened. If you ever lose yourself, I'll be the one to bring you back. I promise. I won't give up on you. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was comfortable, honest. Then, slowly, the rest of the club filtered onto the roof. One by one, Asia, Akino, Kaneko, Kiba, Zenobia, Irina, all drawn by the tension and, maybe, by the moon itself. Asia knelt in front of Issei, her hands trembling but determined. Issei-san, even if you change, even if you're different, I'll always pray for you. You're my hero. He ruffled her hair gently, smiling for the first time all night. Thanks, Asia. You're an angel, you know that. Akino dropped beside him on the other side. Her playful smile softened with something deeper. We all have darkness, Issei-kun. Some just hide it better than others. She winked, lightning crackling at her fingertips. If you ever need help channeling your dark side, I'm happy to help. For research purposes, of course. Issei choked out a laugh, and the tension broke, if only for a moment. Kaneko climbed onto his lap, her usual scowl gentler than normal. Don't get any ideas, pervert. But if you turn into a monster, I'll knock sense into you. That's a promise. The group laughed, soft, tired, but real. Zenobia and Irina stood a little apart, but Zenobia spoke up, her voice serious. If you ever need to spar, Issei, you know where to find me. I won't let you fall, not while I still have a sword. Irina crossed herself, then gave Issei a smile so bright it could cut through any shadow. God forgives those who try. And so do we. Rias pulled Issei close, laying his head on her shoulder. The moon shone down, silver and gentle. For a while, nobody spoke. The club simply sat together, a mismatched family holding on to one another in the face of a world that wanted to tear them apart. And in that moment, Issei felt lighter. The hunger was still there, but so was hope, and so was love. Eventually, Akino couldn't resist. She leaned in, stage whispering to Rias, if this keeps up, President, we'll all have to fight for Issei's first undead kiss. Issei spluttered. The club burst into laughter, and even Rias smiled, blush creeping up her cheeks. For the first time in what felt like forever, Issei looked up at the moon and didn't feel alone. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. Hunters and Shadows. The days after the midnight rooftop confessions felt almost peaceful, almost. But Kuoa's supernatural undercurrent simmered just beneath the surface, and Issei could sense it more clearly than ever. Every rumor in the city felt like a cold draft against his skin. Every shadow on the wall, a silent watcher. The club tightened their routines. Extra patrols, constant magical wards, text threads full of updates, and inside jokes meant to disguise their worry. For a few days, it almost felt like life was finding a new balance. Then the church hunters arrived. It started on a gray afternoon. Kaneko sniffed the air as the group headed home and muttered, "Holy water." And metal. Kiba's face darkened in understanding. That's exorcist gear. Church types. Zenobia and Irina confirmed it. A team of church operatives was asking questions about a monster in devil's clothing. Their presence in Kuo, always a tense sign, meant someone, somewhere, had convinced them the Revenant was a threat to more than just devils. That evening, Issei found himself training with Kiba under the falling cherry blossoms. Kiba parried a practice sword with his usual grace, but his eyes were troubled. "Issei," he said quietly, "do you know why I'm not afraid of what you are?" Issei shrugged, managing a half-hearted grin. "Because you're even cooler than me?" Kiba shook his head. "Because I've seen what real monsters look like. Whatever's inside you, it only matters how you use it." He paused, lowering his sword. "Even if it's darkness, it can be a shield as well as a weapon." The hunger inside Issei twisted, but for once, he didn't flinch from it. He thought of Rias's promise, Asia's prayers, Akino's laughter, Kaniko's stubbornness, Kiba's steady support. Maybe, just maybe, he could learn to use this power for something more than survival. As dusk fell, the hunters struck. The club was ambushed on their way home, a squad in black clerical gear and armor, wielding blessed blades and vials of holy water. The leader, a grim-faced woman with a silver cross, barked an order. "Step aside. That thing isn't one of you anymore." Rias and Akino stood in front of Issei, their power flaring. "If you want Issei," Rias declared, "you'll have to go through us." The first volley of exorcist bullets flew. Zenobia and Irina countered, blades flashing, holy and demonic power colliding. Kiba danced through the chaos, defending the backline. Issei's own powers surged to life, shadows twisting, instinctively shielding Asia as she tended to a wounded Kaniko. He hesitated, feeling the dark hunger rising. He could do more, much more, if he just gave in. If he stopped fighting his nature, he could end this in an instant. Kiba was suddenly at his side, hand on his shoulder. "Don't lose yourself. Fight with us, not above us." Issei nodded, steadying himself. Instead of surrendering, he channeled the shadows, weaving them around his friends as shields, using his speed and charm to misdirect and disarm the hunters instead of hurting them. When the fight ended, the church squad retreated, battered and stunned by the teamwork they'd faced. The leader glared at Issei, voice trembling with fear and respect. "You're a revenant, but you chose not to kill. Why?" Issei met her eyes, shadows swirling around him, but his smile was human and honest. "Because I'm not just a monster. I'm Issei Hayadu, and I have people to protect." She hesitated, then turned away. The hunters faded into the night. Later, the club gathered at the park, bruised but together. Kaniko gave Issei a sideways look, her usual gruffness hiding relief. "Not bad, for a pervert." Rias beamed with pride. "You're learning to control it. I knew you could." Akino nudged his arm, whispering, "If you ever want to practice those shadows on something more fun, let me know." Asia hugged him, tears shining in her eyes. "You did the right thing, Issei-san. I'm so proud of you." Under the stars, surrounded by his friends, Issei felt the hunger retreat. For the first time, it felt less like a curse and more like a part of him he could, maybe, live with. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. The World Knows. The morning air in Kuo was strangely heavy, like the whole town was holding its breath. It started as whispers in the halls. Then, as students trickled into school, a new kind of tension simmered beneath every glance, every conversation. Issei could feel it, on his skin, in his bones, even in the hunger that pulsed quietly beneath his surface. Word had spread. He caught glimpses of it in the way the student council whispered urgently, in the way Sona Citri studied him with cool, calculating eyes. He felt it in how even teachers seemed to step aside as he walked the halls, as if sensing something dangerous stalking in his shadow. But it was the occult research club where the truth hit home. Rias stood at the window, a letter trembling in her hand. Her eyes, usually calm, burned with the fire of a devil on the edge. "The underworld knows," she announced, voice tight. "They're calling for a council. Some want you exiled. Others want you executed. They're afraid of what you represent," Issei. Akino's eyes were hard. "Let them come. I dare them." Kaniko frowned, her tail twitching anxiously. The church sent another message. "Surrender the Revenant or face holy war." Asia clutched her rosary, looking ready to cry. "Why do they all hate you now, Issei-san? You're still you." Issei swallowed hard, trying to smile. "Guess I'm just too hot to handle." Rias put the letter down and turned to him. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and hugged him tightly. "You are not alone. We will fight this. I'll protect you, Issei, no matter what." That evening, the clubroom filled with a heavy, tense silence as the peerage gathered. Sona and her peerage entered, uncharacteristically grim. Sona looked Issei in the eye. The Citri and Grimory houses are united on this. We'll defend you. But you need to understand, this puts all of us in danger. The Fallen, the Church, even some devils, they all see you as a threat now. Issei nodded, the weight of their loyalty settling in his chest. I never wanted any of you to get hurt for me. Tsubaki shook her head. You're not the only one at risk. But you're not the only one with something to fight for, either. Akino stepped closer, lightning dancing at her fingertips. Let them come. This club is more than a devil's household. It's a family. Zenobia and Irina drew their swords. If it comes to a war, we fight as one, Zenobia declared. Kiba gave Issei a lopsided grin. We're used to fighting the odds. What's one more impossible prophecy? Kaneko simply handed Issei a can of juice. You look thirsty, he laughed, the sound more real than it had been in days. Thanks, Kaneko. The mood in the room shifted, nervous, yes, but resolute. Rias raised her head, her eyes full of unyielding fire. The world knows who you are now, Issei. So we'll show them. You are one of us. Anyone who tries to take you on, takes on all of us. As the moon rose above Kuo, the Grimory peerage braced themselves for what was coming, no longer hiding, but daring the world to challenge their Revenant. And Issei, for the first time, felt not just fear, but pride. Whatever happened next, he wasn't running anymore. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. Betrayals and Bonds. Pressure makes diamonds, or it makes things break. For days, Kuo was a city of rumors and spies. The Grimory estate's magical defenses grew tighter, the club's patrols stricter, the mood heavier. The world wasn't just watching Issei Hayadu, it was sharpening its knives for him. In the tense glow of dusk, Rias summoned her peerage to the clubroom. This time, Sona and her group were waiting, silent and grave. Sona stepped forward. Word is out. The council in the underworld is divided. Some want Issei destroyed, some want him studied, and some are looking for any weakness in your group, Rias. They're bribing, threatening, offering deals. Rias's face was hard, her eyes the color of blood and storm clouds. No one in my family is for sale, but the words hung heavy in the air. That night, the cracks began to show. Issei noticed Kiba acting strangely distant, restless, phone buzzing with coded texts he quickly hid. Even Asia seemed on edge, her prayers growing more frantic. Akino cornered Issei in the hallway, her smile more brittle than usual. They approached me too, you know. Promised a place in the House of Baal if I delivered information on the Revenant. Offered me power. Her eyes glittered with electric fury. As if I'd betray you for anything. He tried to laugh. Guess I'm worth a lot these days. She poked his chest, voice trembling just a little. You're worth more than the world. Later, Kiba found Issei outside, standing under the full moon. Kiba hesitated, shadows in his eyes. They asked me to lead you into a trap. Said it would end this peacefully. Promised to restore my friends from the project if I gave you up. Issei's heart clenched, the hunger inside swirling with uncertainty. And did you think about it? Kiba looked away, shame flickering across his face. For a second. I'm not proud of it. I lost everything once, Issei. I know what it's like to be haunted. But you gave me a family again. You, Rias, everyone. He met Issei's gaze, resolve sharpening. They don't get to take that away from us. Issei smiled, relief flooding him. Thanks, Kiba. I'd haunt you forever if you turned me in, you know? Kiba snorted. Trust me, I believe it. Inside, Rias gathered the group, her voice unwavering. The world is trying to tear us apart. They want us to doubt each other. But I trust you all with my life and with Issei's. If anyone here feels differently, now is the time to say so. No one spoke. Asia reached out, grabbing Issei's hand in both of hers. Kaneko nodded firmly, tail flicking. Akino stood close, lightning crackling in her hair. Zenobia and Irina rested their swords on the table in silent pledge. Even Sona offered a rare, genuine smile. Sona looked at Issei and said, We will not let politics or fear decide our future. The bonds you have here are stronger than any prophecy. That night, Issei lay awake, shadows shifting on his ceiling. But for the first time in days, the hunger inside was quiet. Not gone, but calmed by the warmth of trust. He realized the world could threaten, bribe, or attack. But as long as they stood together, he wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was the true power of a Revenant. The power to bring people together, even against the darkness. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. Prophecy unfolding. The storm that had been brewing over Kuo finally broke. The night sky burned with unnatural light, magical signals and warnings flashing above rooftops. The supernatural world had drawn its lines, angels, devils, and Fallen each preparing for battle, each determined not to let the other claim the Revenant. In the clubroom, tension crackled. Rias sat surrounded by tomes and scrolls, piecing together fragments of ancient prophecy. Akino kept watch at the window, lightning dancing in her palms. The others were restless, weapons close at hand. Issei stood in the center, the weight of every gaze on him. It was Asia who finally spoke, her voice trembling but steady. Issei-san, what does the prophecy really mean? Why are they so afraid? Rias set down a crumbling parchment. I think I finally understand. This isn't just about power. The prophecy says, the Revenant will walk the path between worlds, wielding the hunger of the grave and the hope of the living. His choice will tip the scales toward war or peace. Kiba nodded, understanding dawning. It's not just your strength, Issei. It's your will. The world is afraid because you could choose to destroy the balance or remake it. Akino smirked, a spark of hope in her eyes. They think you're a monster, but really, you're a wild card. Suddenly, the shadows in the clubroom thickened, like ink poured across the floor. From their depths, the figure from Issei's death appeared, the ancient, horned being with crimson eyes. The room froze. Rias stepped forward, defiant. Who are you? The being smiled, old and sorrowful. I am one of the forgotten. I once walked these worlds when the boundary between life and death was thin. I gave Issei his power to see if hope could survive in darkness. Issei's hands clenched. Why me? Why curse me like this? The being shook its head. It is not a curse, young dragon. It is a test. You are both hunger and heart. You can devour, or you can unite. The prophecy is not about ending the world. It is about changing it, if you have the courage. The club fell silent, the truth settling over them like snowfall. Rias looked at Issei, her eyes shining. So it's up to you. What kind of world do you want to make? He stared at his hands, shadows flickering. I never wanted to destroy anything. I just wanted to live and protect everyone I care about. The ancient being nodded. Then your choice is clear. But know this. If you run from your nature, you will be a pawn forever. If you embrace it, you can be a king, but you must do it on your own terms. With those words, the being faded, leaving only a lingering chill. Rias turned to the group. War is coming. They'll try to force our hand. But the prophecy isn't set in stone. Issei, whatever you choose, we're with you. Issei met her gaze, then looked at his friends. Their faces, hopeful, afraid, but loyal, gave him the strength he needed. I'll fight, he said quietly. Not for prophecy, not for power. For all of you. Outside, the storm gathered, but inside the clubroom, resolve blazed brighter than ever. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15. Battle for Kuo. The day began like any other, but everyone felt it. The tension in the air, the heaviness pressing on the soul. Kuo had become a powder keg, and today, the spark would fall. The Grimoire Manor buzzed with activity. Magical wards shimmered around the property. Devils, angels, and fallen all had sent their envoys to demand the Revenant's surrender. Rias met each with steel in her voice and fire in her eyes. You want Issei? You'll have to go through me. The enemy wasn't just at the gates. They were everywhere, circling Kuo like wolves. The ultimatum. A devil envoy from the council, armored in obsidian and pride, delivered the message. Turn over the Revenant, or the underworld will brand the Grimoire traitors. Moments later, a host of church exorcists took up positions around the school, holy swords gleaming. This is holy ground. Release the monster, or face divine judgment. From the rooftops, the fallen angels watched, wings like banners of midnight, their leader's voice ringing out. The balance is at stake. If you refuse, there will be no mercy. The first strike, it began with a single shot, a holy spear, hurled by a rogue exorcist, meant for Issei but intercepted by Kiba. Chaos erupted. Light and shadow clashed as the Grimoire peerage surged into battle formation. Rias led the charge, crimson power blazing as she flung back attackers. Akino's lightning split the sky, carving through the ranks of both angel and devil alike. Kaneko darted through the chaos, landing bone-shaking punches on anyone who got too close to Asia, who healed allies as fast as wounds appeared. Issei fought at the center, a whirlwind of shadows, teleporting between friend and foe, disarming, disabling, never killing. He could feel the hunger surging, begging to be unleashed, but he held it back, letting the warmth of his friend's trust guide every blow. The turning point. Mid-battle, Issei was cornered by a coalition of fallen and devils, too many for even him to handle. They taunted him, choose. Devour us and become the monster they fear, or fall with your precious humanity. The hunger held inside. Shadows gathered, eager to erupt. Issei's vision swam. he saw, for one terrible moment, the world as the Revenant might see it. Everyone an enemy, everything to be consumed. But then, through the maelstrom, Rias's voice pierced the storm. Issei, you're not alone. Come back to us. He saw her standing in the wreckage, battered but unbroken, her eyes ablaze with hope and love. In that instant, Issei made his choice. Instead of unleashing the monster, he reached for the memory of every kindness, every laugh, every promise. He called out, not in rage, but in defiance of fate. I'm not here to destroy the world. I'm here to protect it, my way. Shadows erupted, not as weapons, but as shields, wrapping around his friends and even the enemies too wounded to fight. He used his hypnotic charm to pacify rather than enslave, to halt violence instead of inciting it. The aftermath. Seeing Issei's refusal to become the monster, many combatants faltered. Some stopped fighting, others withdrew. A few, driven by old hatred, pressed on, but were quickly subdued by the combined might of the peerage. Rias, bloody and triumphant, declared, "This is our answer. The Grimoire will not surrender family, and we will not surrender hope. If you want war, you'll have to kill us all." Slowly, the various factions realized this wasn't the apocalypse they feared. The prophecy wasn't about destruction, but about choosing a new path. The battle ends. As the sun set, the last attackers withdrew. Kuo was scarred, but standing. The supernatural world, watching from afar, saw not a monster's rampage, but the birth of a new kind of legend. Issei, battered and spent, collapsed to his knees as the adrenaline faded. Rias rushed to his side, pulling him into her arms. He looked up at her, shadows fading, and managed a tired grin. "Guess I really am hard to kill, huh?" Rias laughed through her tears, the club gathering close, family in every sense of the word. Above them, the night was clear at last. End of Chapter 15. Chapter 16. The Anchor's Embrace. Night fell on a battered, but standing Kuo. The wounds of the supernatural battle were already being healed, magically for the buildings, and with time, hugs, and jokes for the people. But inside the quiet, shadowed halls of the old school building, Issei Hayadu's battle was not over. He sat alone in the clubroom, the door closed and the moonlight painting silver across his skin. The others had gone home to rest or patch themselves up, but Issei couldn't move. The echoes of the fight replayed in his mind, mingling with the whispers of the hunger that never quite left him. "You could have ended it faster," the darkness murmured. "You could have shown them all the power of the Revenant." He shuddered, clutching his head. The hunger surged, sharp and bitter, scraping at the edge of his soul. For one terrible instant, he saw himself as the world's monsters feared him, alone, cold, empty. The door creaked. Footsteps padded across the room. A gentle, familiar scent, like roses after rain. Rias. She crossed the space without a word, kneeling in front of him and cupping his face in her warm hands. Her eyes shone with exhaustion, worry, and a fierce, unwavering love. "Issei," she whispered, "come back to me." He shook his head, voice cracking. I almost let go, Rias. I was so close to losing myself. I don't know if I can fight it forever." She leaned in, her forehead against his, her breath soft and real. "You don't have to fight it alone. You have me. All of us. But mostly, you have me." Tears slid down his cheeks, cold at first, then strangely warm. He gripped her hands, grounding himself in her touch. "You're my anchor," he breathed. "You always have been." Rias smiled, a single tear glinting on her cheek. "Then let me anchor you now." She pulled him into a tight embrace, her arms strong around his trembling form. He clung to her, burying his face in her shoulder as the hunger faded, replaced by a steady, calming warmth. With every heartbeat, she drew him back from the edge. They stayed like that for a long time, lost in the quiet comfort only they could give each other. When he finally looked up, Rias brushed his hair back and kissed his forehead. "We made it," Issei. "You chose us. You chose yourself." He laughed softly, the sound full of relief and wonder. "Guess I'll always be a little bit of a monster, but with you, I can live with that." Rias's lips curved in a gentle, mischievous smile. "Just remember, you're my monster. And I love you, shadow, hunger, and all." For the first time since becoming a Revenant, Issei felt truly alive. End of Chapter 16. Chapter 17. Revenant's Rhapsody. The aftermath of the battle brought a strange new peace to Kuo. The supernatural world, so quick to condemn, so eager for war, now watched with wary respect as word of Issei Hayadu's choice spread. No apocalypse had come. No darkness had swallowed the world. Instead, the Grimoire family, with their stubborn, shadow-haunted pawn at the center, had shown everyone a different way. Unity, loyalty, and love. For the first time since his resurrection, Issei found himself walking through the halls of Kuo Academy without whispers at his back. The students still stared, but their eyes were curious, sometimes even admiring. The girls of the Occult Research Club flanked him wherever he went, daring anyone to challenge their claim. Rias walked with him, their hands intertwined. In her presence, the shadows around Issei were soft, almost playful. The hunger remained, but it was tamed, a part of him, not the whole. In the clubroom, the group gathered for a rare, quiet afternoon. Kiba retold the story of the great battle, embellishing for dramatic effect, while Kaneko tossed snacks at his head. Zenobia and Irina argued about whose swordplay had been most effective, while Akino lounged on the sofa, eyes sparkling with mischief. Asia sat beside Issei, her smile radiant. Issei-san, you saved everyone. Even when you could have become something terrible, you didn't. He grinned, scratching the back of his head. Guess being a pervert isn't the worst thing I could be, huh? Akino leaned over, her voice a low tease. But it's definitely the most entertaining. Laughter filled the room, bright and genuine. As the sun set, painting the world gold and crimson, Rias drew Issei aside to the balcony. Below them, Kuo shimmered with the promise of peace. She slipped her arms around him, resting her head on his shoulder. You changed everything, Issei. The prophecy didn't mean the end of the world. It meant the end of old fears. He looked down at her, his heart, or what passed for it, full. I couldn't have done it alone. I had you. She smiled, eyes glistening. And you'll always have me. Shadow, hunger, humanity, all of it. I love you, Issei. Never forget that. He kissed her gently, the world quiet for a perfect moment. Later, as night settled, Issei stood at the clubroom window, the city aglow with life. The hunger inside him purred, sated by love and friendship, no longer a threat, but a reminder. Darkness and light could coexist. He turned, surrounded by his family, devils, angels, humans, and one irrepressible revenant. Whatever comes next, Issei declared, we face it together. Outside, the night whispered in harmony, and for the first time, Issei felt not cursed, but chosen. A new story was just beginning, one written not in prophecy, but in the bonds they'd forged. End of chapter 17. And that's a wrap on today's story. What if Issei was a demonic revenant? I hope you enjoyed listening it as much as I loved putting it together. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment sharing your thoughts or your own what if ideas, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support really helps these stories reach even more DxD fans. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.